Hey guys, welcome back to another Clash Royale video, and today we have some very exciting news to talk about. The newest round of balance changes coming out very soon to Clash Royale, and I am very excited about this round of balance changes, guys. Probably my favorite set of balances in a very long time. We have stuff like Bomb Tower buff, King Tower buff, Royal Hog buff, Cannon Cart buff, and more. Now I'm going to keep today's video short, sweet, and to the point. I will have another one coming out later on tonight, but the first change on the balance list, guys, is a nerf to the Infernal Dragon. The range is being decreased from 4 tiles to 3.5 tiles, and more importantly, it can now be knocked back by spells like Giant Snowball and the Fireball, which is a huge indirect buff to the Giant Snowball, which we all know desperately needs some love right now. So the range being decreased from 4 tiles to 3.5 tiles and can now be knocked back by spells. It's going to make the Giant Snowball much more of a compelling option versus always using a zap and a log, especially if you use like a beatdown deck. Previously, you almost always had to have either a zap or a lightning in your deck, but with the knockback effect, you can now rely on a Giant Snowball or a Fireball to reset the Infernal Dragon. Now the next card here, guys, is the Royal Hogs getting a buff. Their first attack will now be faster. This is the only change on the list that I am a little bit disappointed about. I was really hoping for more of a buff with the Royal Hogs, but do keep in mind that there are 4 of them in total, so each Royal Hog will get their first attack off a bit faster, which obviously isn't too bad, but was definitely kind of hoping for a bit more with the Royal Hogs just because they are so easy to counter. Hopefully, though, I am wrong and the Royal Hogs can come into the meta because we definitely need more win conditions in this game. And the Royal Hogs are obviously one of the newest win conditions, but have been a pretty underwhelming card since their release back in June. Now, the next card here, guys, is the Baby Dragon getting a bit of a buff as well. Hit speed a bit faster, going from 1.6 seconds to 1.5 seconds. Once again, it will also be able to be knocked back by spells as well, which is another indirect buff to the Giant Snowball. This is pretty cool, guys. It's kind of a small nerf to bait as well. Stuff like Goblin Gang, Minions, and Minion Horde will die a bit faster to the Baby Dragon. Now, the next change here, guys, is the Knight getting a small damage buff as well. 5% increase to damage, which doesn't sound like much at first, but with a 5% increase to damage, the Knight will actually be able to one-shot goblins of an equal level, which is a huge change and will also make it much more of a competitive option versus always having to use the Valkyrie. The Knight will now be a much better counter for stuff like goblins and Goblin Gang, which is why the Valkyrie was so important. Now, the next change here, guys, is the Tesla Tower. Finally, thank goodness, getting a nerf. The lifetime is being a bit shorter, going from 40 seconds to 35 seconds, which means if you are using a fast cycle deck, it'll be a lot harder to have 2 or more Teslas down. And it also means they effectively reduce the health of the Tesla without actually nerfing the health itself, because it'll lose health at a faster rate. Also, the hit speed of the Tesla is being decreased as well, attacking a bit slower, going from 1 second to 1.1 second. Now, the next buff here, guys, comes to another defense, one that hasn't had any love in an extremely long time, and that, of course, is the Bomb Tower finally getting a buff in the game. So, the Bomb Tower elixir cost is actually being decreased from 5 elixir to 4 elixir. So, it'll cost the exact same as a Tesla Tower. Now, they're also decreasing the lifetime of the Bomb Tower from 40 to 35 to be the exact same as the Tesla, and it's also getting a hit point decrease of 33% to match the new elixir cost. But what they didn't decrease was the damage, so it'll have the same damage as a 5 elixir Bomb Tower, but now for 1 elixir less, which makes it a much better option and counter for stuff like Royal Hogs and Hog Rider, because previously, if you used Bomb Tower against a Hog Rider, it was always a -1 elixir trade, and now it'll be an equal elixir trade, and also, it makes the overall like defensive building kind of meta a bit more kind of separated. The cannon will be good for kind of fast cycle decks. The Tesla Tower obviously for air and ground defense. The Bomb Tower for splash damage. And the Infernal Tower for that heavy tank killer. And also for the Infernal Tower, with the decrease of the range of the Infernal Dragon, it also makes the Infernal Tower much more of a compelling option as well for the extra range and the extra health. Now moving on the list here, guys, we have a massive buff to the cannon card. Honestly, I predict after this balance update, the cannon card will be a very strong card in the meta, guys. So the cannon card, the cannon lifetime is being drastically increased from 20 seconds to 30 seconds. So it'll still have the same health as before, but after being destroyed in cannon card form and going into cannon form, it'll last 10 seconds longer there if it isn't attacked. Also, it'll now transform into the cannon form a bit faster, and it'll be immune to knockback effects. So Bowler, Fireball, and Giant Snowball will not knock back the cannon card. I think overall, if you don't answer a cannon card with this change in the game, it'll get one more attack on your Princess Tower, which honestly is a pretty important change. Now the next card here, guys, is the Balloon. Now, when I was kind of cruising through social media the other day, I saw a lot of pro players were calling for a massive nerf of the Balloon. A lot of them wanted a health nerf. They wanted the Balloon to die to Rocket plus Zap. I don't agree with that at all. Honestly, I think for being a win condition, it shouldn't die so easily to spells, and it shouldn't always be the case that if you use Balloon and you face Rocket, it's like an immediate hard counter. So instead, the Balloon can now be knocked back by spells as well, which once again is a massive buff to the Giant Snowball. So Fireball and Giant Snowball will both knock back the Balloon, which will help push the Balloon away from a tank like a Lava Hound, which will allow your troops to lock on a lot easier. So overall, with the knockback now affecting the Baby Dragon, the Infernal Dragon, and the Balloon, the Giant Snowball is getting a massive indirect buff, which, as I mentioned before, will make it much more of a compelling option versus always having to have the Zap or the Lock in your deck, especially with the Infernal Dragon change, because previously, like I've said before, guys, if you're using like a Golem deck or a Giant deck, like you always had to have either Zap, E-Wizard, or the Lightning in your deck. Now, you can use a Giant Snowball or a Fireball to reset the Infernal Dragon. Now, the final change on the balance list here, guys, is actually a very surprising one. The King Tower himself is actually getting a damage buff. Now, if you kind of didn't know for some reason before, the King Tower used to actually do less damage than a Princess Tower, which would actually change several interactions. For example, I think goblins of an equal level die to 2 shots of a Princess Tower, but it takes 3 from a King Tower. So now the damage of the King Tower is being increased to match that of a Princess Tower, so that way all of the interactions are the same, which I honestly think is a pretty cool buff and I didn't expect at all to see. The only other thing that I wish they did with the King Tower was allow him to bust out his cannon a bit faster when he's activated. Like, nothing is worse when you lose a Princess Tower and your opponent has a push coming at you, and you watch your King Tower take like literally a million years before the cannon pops out. Now obviously that isn't much of a big deal because your opponent also has the slow King Tower reaction, but just something that I notice every so often is how slow the King Tower reacts when he's pulling out his cannon. But guys, that is the end of the balance list. So to summarize here, we had a nerf to the Infernal Dragon, a buff to the Royal Hogs, a buff to the Baby Dragon, a buff to the Knight, a nerf to the Tesla, a buff to the Bomb Tower, a buff to the Cannon card, a small nerf to the Balloon, an indirect buff to the Giant Snowball, and finally a buff to the King Tower as well. Because that's the end of the list. Let me know what you guys think of this round of balance changes down in the comments below. Are you happy? Are you disappointed? Were you hoping for more or less? Was one of your favorite cards changed or not changed? Let me know what you guys think of this balance update down in the comments below. And I also want to apologize for talking like a news reporter in this video. I get so many comments on all of my videos like this saying, why does he talk like that? Why does he talk like a news reporter? I even get some saying like, oh, look at this crazy Canadian news reporter. So I do want to apologize for that, guys. But that's the end of the video. Really hope you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to leave a like, subscribe for more Clash Royale content. Thank you so much for watching, guys. We will see you in the next one.